Hello, everyone, and welcome. This evening, welcome to V. Bailey's Ask a Black Woman. We're so happy to have you here tonight. It's the very first episode brought to you by HBCU Lounge Network. So we're grateful to have you with us tonight. We will be discussing the topic of soul ties. And so before this, first episode brought to you by all right. We got it on everywhere, guys. Sorry about that. Okay. Just wanted to see anyone's comments. If you guys have any comments coming in, please hold them to about, halfway through the show, about 20 minutes in, and then we will allow questions or check in for questions that you may have for the audience. Okay, and we are streaming here on YouTube as well as on Facebook. So if you wanted to share with your friends and family to hear us discuss this topic, go ahead and get that in. And we will have another guest joining us a little bit later. And so back to what I was stating is that, originally we started with Ask a Black Man, and Ask a Black Man was the opportunity for, men to kind of get off, have a place to be vulnerable and speak to the things that concern them, and just be able to share with women, and women can ask any question that they had for them, and just really get to know each other. The point is to kind of bridge this gap and this disconnect that has been happening lately, or at least has been pushed in social media, in the media, just across the board. And so we wanted to work on, bridging that gap. And so, yes, that's what we started with Ask a Black Man. We finished that season, and now we are starting Ask a Black Woman. So fellas, if you have questions, feel free to put your questions in the chat, and we'll be more than happy to, try and answer those questions for you the best that we can. And we're going to get into soul ties. But first, I would like to introduce my guest. First, we have Miss Ava Joy, and next we have Vanessa. And we will be having a little bit later Dr. Maleo Nagesti. I think I'm saying it right. So, Ava, if you could just introduce yourself and just kind of tell the people what you do, and then we'll go on to Vanessa.
I'm Ava. I am behind the scenes on this HBCU Lounge Network. But today I've been invited to come up front.
Yeah, so we're so glad to have you, and thank you so much for joining us. Miss Vanessa Brooks, go ahead and take the floor.
Sure. Thank you both so much for having me on today. I am Vanessa Brooks. I am a professional counselor as well as a professional life coach. I own a life coaching academy, the Master Key Coaching Academy, and I also work with women in helping them to sort of heal after trauma. I am a women's advocate, women's empowerment advocate. So I'm all about women's empowerment. And so I'm just glad to be here on today.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that. It's such a treat to have you both. So the topic this evening is soul ties. It is a very interesting topic because I think there's so many different perspectives on it. If you were raised in the church, you have that perspective. That's the only way I've heard it, because I was raised in the church, my whole life. And so, I have that spiritual connection to it. And church connection, to the term. And then there's some folks who were raised different, or maybe they didn't grow up in church, but they've heard the term, or there's other terms, to describe the same thing. And so I thought it was very important for us to discuss this, especially for women. Anything to do with sex. It's so different from men, in the way that they, I guess, think about, the whole act of sex when we're connecting the soul ties to sex. And so I just thought it would be very helpful if we can kind of tackle this topic and discuss it, so we can kind of give it from a female's perspective, and hopefully that helps, and there's more understanding within the relationships or relationships to come. So let's start with the definition of soul ties. So the soul ties definition, I've seen many. I'm going to give the one that I've seen the most. And so we'll go from there, and I'll obviously let you all share your perspective on it. So with soul ties, see here. So soul ties is a phrase which some people use to refer to a spiritual connection between two people. In others, it is said to form after an intensely close spiritual or emotional relationship. Common examples of soul ties refer to those formed with a partner from previous relationships. So that is the definition of soul ties. And then they have a few different ones that they list for different types of soul ties that they list. And those are marriage, business, sex, and friendship. And then it says some of the ties have affected people negatively. So that was interesting because I guess I never thought that far into it because I just had that one definition of it and didn't know if there was a negative or a positive, with the soul ties. Because typically you hear it in a negative way that it's just drama and there's these soul ties and you got to break these soul ties. Yeah, so I thought that was very interesting. So, well, ladies, let's talk about it. Ava, when you've heard the term soul ties, what were your thoughts originally with the term?
I originally heard it from church too.
Okay.
So of course it was basically a way to tell women to keep their legs closed.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I interpret it. Even when I was in church, but definitely when I left the church, I just felt it was a form of control. I do know that there's energy and spiritual connections that people have. But I also know that we're sovereign. We can cut those ties. That's my opinion.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be a burden that you carry, which is the way a lot of people make it seem like. Once you have sex with this person, you're automatically tied to them. I mean, I know I had people tell me you're always going to be connected to your daughter's father. Because it's the first man you had a baby with, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, no, he's garbage. I mean, let me not say that. But I don't have a connection to him anymore. He's not, I came to the realization we were not meant for each other. We were not good together. And that was it. It wasn't a need for me to go back. I wasn't going to make it acceptable for me to go back.
Right. No, I mean, and I think that's a great point. It's kind of scary, to hear that, especially since it didn't work out. And you're like, okay, no. So what can we do about this thing? Because I don't want to be bound to this person, for the rest of my life. I mean, it's great if it worked out and you guys are living in harmony, then you're like, that's great. Yeah. We are bound together to the day that we take our last breath and it's all good. But when that is not the case, and it's not the case for quite a few, you're kind of questioning what can you do with that? And it seems pretty discouraging when you hear that, from a group of people that you grew up, with or grew up respecting, and taking advice from. And so you're just like, dang, well, maybe, what does that mean? I'm just done, stick a fork in me, I'm just going to raise my kid and not, have, another partner because I'm going to be attached to this person. And so, yeah, I thought that was interesting. I grew up, hearing some of the same things. And so for me, but I've been to different, churches and I've heard different things and heard a pastor. There was an event we went to in Georgia when I used to live in Atlanta. And I can't remember the church, but the first lady created this event, and it was for women. It was on Valentine's Day, and so it was pretty awesome because at the time, especially if you're single, you're like, okay, I'm single and spiritual. Let me come get some information to make me, feel better. And I didn't know what I was getting into. A friend invited me, and it was called Raw, and it was Real Answers for Women. And I thought it was really amazing. And it was mostly the first lady speaking, and she wanted to discuss, things to do with sex and, relationships and marriage, because she grew up in the church, her whole life, and a lot of these things were not discussed. And so she knew what the expectations would be, not the expectations, but basically she's going to get married one day and have kids, family, all that, whole nine, and what, she has to do. But before that, she really didn't understand a lot of things about sex, or the shame or any of those things, just not to do it, and so she kind of, was going into that, talking about the expectations and talking about, how to, basically keep that new, but also talking about the experiences with sex, before marriage and, having multiple partners and so on. And so the pastor, he had came up at one point and he was talking about the soul ties and about everyone to write a list of their partners, everyone that they've been with that they want to break these soul ties with, and to write this list and to pray over it and then to burn it, and so for some, they're like, oh, shoot, let's see, where do we start? And so it's like it's a small list, but, it's really taking over their life. And so for me, I thought it was important, or, it was helpful, because it was just like, oh, okay, you can get rid of this, like you can't cut these ties or whatnot. So yeah, I just wanted to share that, my, actual I guess experience, with hearing about it, and then kind of like, oh Lord, what does this mean? I'm really attached to this person. Why did I do it? All that that stuff. And then to hear that was just like, okay, that's good, So well, let's go into Miss Vanessa, and hear your perspective on soul ties. And if you, sure.
I think I'm dealing with some trauma just hearing the word soul ties. So, I mean, I was raised in church. I was raised in church all my life, and I was a pastor for many, many years. So I taught heavily about soul ties. Now that I'm no longer in the environment of the church, and I'm able to look at things from a more, what I feel, a more holistic perspective. I have a completely different understanding of what we call soul ties. So as I mentioned, I'm a counselor, and one of the things we look at in psychology is something called attachment. And I really wish more pastors would study it from this perspective, because I think it would be more empowering if we looked at it from this perspective, instead of this sort of, like you said, this kind of scary perspective of, oh my God, I'm stuck with this person. I used to think that every man I slept with, like, they literally were still inside my body, like, and that they were I was taking on their personality. That's how we taught it in the church. That's pretty scary and pretty ridiculous, to be honest, but we taught that. So anyway, what I learned is that what actually happens is, first of all, soul ties are not necessarily a bad thing. And I'm gonna try to be gentle, because I don't want folks to think I'm bashing the church, but the church does perpetuate this mindset that sex is an evil thing unless you're married. The only time that it's not evil is when you're married. So they perpetuate this belief that if you have sex without being married, that you're going to inevitably create a soul tie. So that belief gets into the psyche, and it really paralyzes women more than we know.
Right.
And it's going to end up in the future, it's going to end up sabotaging a woman's sex life down the road. But I'll come back and talk about that later.
Yes, please.
So we created this illusion that if I'm married, I won't get a soul tie. If I'm not married and I have sex, I'm going to get a soul tie. What a soul tie really is, it really has to do with how we connect to individuals, right? In psychology, we call it attachment theory. So there's really basically 4 ways that we attach to human beings based on our need. Doesn't matter whether you're married or single. And it has to do with how you attached to your parent as a child. The way you formed your relationship with your parents as a child affects how you attach as an adult to not just your romantic partner, but to your friends or whoever. All of us. So what happens is we call these people attachment figures in psychology, what the church would call your, you know, the demon that you're trying to cast out of yourself. They're actually just attachment figures. So what happens is in a relationship, we tend to become attachment figures to each other. So we enjoy being around that person for whatever reason. They give us comfort. They make us feel safe. They give us good sex, whatever it is. It creates an enduring connection to that person. We want to be around them. And I think that's where the church gets confused when they say, when you have sex with that person, once you have sex with them, they're going to always be in your mind and your thoughts and your body. Well, what's happening is you do create a connection to that person, but it doesn't mean that it's eternal.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you have to walk the rest of your life with a man's personality and energy inside of your body. That's not how it happens. And we'll get down the road later. You're going to talk about how we break it. So I'd like for people to kind of think about it instead of saying really a soul tie. It's really a soul attachment. We become attached to each other because there's something about the other person that brings us a level of pleasure at that time.
Right.
So it's an emotional attachment as well as sexual. It's not just sexual. So pastors can have soul ties, quote unquote, with their members.
Right. That's what I was going to say. I think I had read that on one of the articles that I was reading from one of the books. And it was stating that it's not, just from sex. And I thought it was just from sex.
Right.
Because
that's how it's taught.
That's how, I learned it, and so I had no idea. I was like, oh, this is a better topic.
Some soul connections, some soul attachments we need to keep.
Yeah.
There are some people that you are going to become attached to at a deep soul level.
Right.
And you've never slept with them. You've never had a romantic thought or attraction to them, but you're just connected in a deep emotional way. So all soul ties do not need to be broken, and that does not mean that it's a negative connotation. Now, I'm a little woo-woo. I don't know if Ava told you, I'm a little woo-woo now. There's also the perspective of soul contracts, which I don't want to go too deep into that, Ava, but for some of us, we understand that if you understand that we are eternal beings, this is not the only life that we've lived. I'm getting real woo-woo, right? So before you incarnated into this physical life that you're living right now, we all have known each other in eternity. And there is a belief, a notion that we create contracts to come onto the planet and have connections with certain souls because there are life lessons that we need to learn. And we need that person in our life because there's a certain lesson that individual needs to teach us. And so we chose to experience that with them in the eternal realm. So rather than us trying to make this into something that's demonic, if we could raise our spiritual awareness and just honor those people that we're no longer connected to, and just understand for that time frame, I was in a soul contract and there was something I needed from them. I needed to learn something, and there was something about myself that I needed to strengthen. And this person's connection in my life helped me to see that about myself. Otherwise, I wouldn't have saw it. So some of your audience may want to look into soul contracts and understand it in a deeper way, so that we don't have this feeling of being haunted by, oh my God, I slept with 50 men and they're all inside of me now. You know what I'm saying? To kind of get rid of that craziness.
And if you're not afraid, or if it's not something that you're against, I suggest you get a natal chart reading from certain people. Not anybody, but certain people, and they will tell you, like my mother and I align a lot in certain houses. And I've always had the feeling that at one point I was probably her child. I mean, her mother.
Her mother.
So you come back to That's if you believe in that type of thing.
If you believe in it, yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Because some of those relationships,
lifetimes, and
that's right. That's exactly right.
From a gentleman, I was actually in a room and he was speaking and he was just saying that, what was it? He was saying that in your enemy, in your past life, are your sometimes your parent or your spouse or your child in this life. And it's because you have to learn certain lessons that I guess you didn't learn or whatnot.
Absolutely.
I agree to that. I mean, I grew up in the church and, I know there's some church members that are like, oh, you can't believe that. And I'm like, but I do though, and I've always kind of thought that way since I was young. And I haven't, really heard or learned anything, that really disputes that. So, that's me. So when you said you're a little woo woo, I'm like, well,
I'm a little woo woo, but it's really very empowering if we look at it from a wider perspective than just I got to cast this demon out of me. That is so antiquated and so disempowering, and it's not really going to help women to become empowered if they have to go through their life thinking that. If we could raise our vibration or our awareness a little bit higher, we could see some deeper truths that, sometimes religion keeps those deeper truths hidden from us and keeps us in that state of bondage. So then we don't really have to be trying to break the soul tie. And I'm getting kind of ahead, but if you understand it from that perspective, there's really nothing to break. It's just what did I need to learn from that experience? It's not about trying to break it, but it's about what do I need to learn from that? It's a completely different viewpoint from that perspective.
That makes a lot of sense. Let me see here. I want to make sure if anyone has any questions, okay, someone says, people sometimes use the term to shame women on their past or sexual assault. And in the end, you can choose who you are connected to. That was thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. And that's something why I think it's very important for us to talk about that. And I'll probably have other topics in relating to sex in general, because there is a lot of shame with that, with women. And I think it's very important for the fellas that are listening in. You may be in a relationship with someone and you're just like, I don't get it, and you really want to support them, but you just don't get it. You don't understand because it's not something necessarily that you have had to deal with, because obviously there's some things that men and women deal with, and it just feels different, but you're going through the same thing, and so I think that it's important to, bring awareness to that. And also to what you said, Vanessa, being able to come, it's very empowering because you can come from it from an empowering perspective and say, okay, let me educate myself and I can be free from this. It's just about me and, how it is that I feel about it. Well, and my understanding about it and what I have the power to do, because, you're the captain of your own ship and you're not this victim that came here and, came into this earth and it's just like all these things are just happening to you. It's just like, no, you get to play a part in your own life. You get to play a part. So, thank you so much for sharing that. Let me see if there's
I would like Vanessa to give some clarity to the woo-woo. We got several questions about it. And we actually have a person who said that it's African spiritual systems. And I think it's more than that, right?
Oh, okay. Well, go ahead and let's touch on that now.
I didn't hear the last part of your statement. What was the last part of the statement?
So there was a comment that said woo-woo is African spiritual systems. And I think it's more than just African spiritual systems when you say woo-woo.
Yeah, so when I say woo-woo, it's really just a term of endearment that we kind of use in the spiritual community. For me, when I say woo-woo, I'm just talking about alternative spiritual belief systems that are not necessarily aligned with traditional Abrahamic religious systems. That's what woo-woo means for me. That could include African spirituality, but it could also include Hinduism, Buddhism. So when I say woo-woo, I just mean spiritual beliefs that are outside the traditional Abrahamic faith spirituality. It's just a term of endearment.
No, that makes sense.
Does that
Hopefully,
make sense?
Yeah.
So in traditional Abrahamic faiths, there's absolutely no belief in reincarnation. It's just not a tenet of the faith within religion. When I say Abrahamic faiths, I mean Christianity in particular, because that's my background. So in Christianity, there is no belief in reincarnation. So when I talked about reincarnation a minute ago, that's a woo-woo belief for traditional religions. So that's what that term meant.
right. No, definitely. I mean, and that's good. I mean, I think we do definitely need to clear that up for some people because they, have different perspectives on it.
Right.
And so, want to make sure they're clear just in case they have any questions. We're definitely open to speak to that. Let's see. Of course. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to move on to the next question. And that is more so about how does soul ties affect, Black women, in our community, is in regards to if you had a spiritual, upbringing, and then maybe the secular term for it, because I know that there is one, and I can look that up just in case you guys don't have it. But how it affects, us as women, because I know that, our community, we're very, spiritual or religious. And I know we kind of touched on it a little bit here and there about it, but I wanted to kind of directly, touch on that. So Ava, you can, touch on that first, and we can go to Miss Vanessa. So how would you say, you're affected by it, or those that are affected by it in your relationships?
I don't. Again, that's something I just don't think about anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The women that I surround myself with now, like I said, we believe in our own sovereignty, our own power.
Yeah. I can speak to it because I spent so many years working with Christian women. So when I speak, I'm speaking from a Christian perspective only because that's my background. And so I'm not trying to single out Christianity, but that's just my background. And most of my clients that come to me, 80% of them are still Christians and in the church. So they have to tiptoe in the dark to see me because it's just not accepted all the time. But I'm going to tell you, one of the main things that I see with this type of belief is that, and I spoke about it a minute ago, so 60% of Christian marriages end in divorce. And we need to be asking ourselves, why is that?
Wow.
I
Yeah.
put something on Facebook the other day, and I was talking about how sexually rigid African-American women are. 79% of African-American women are Christians or have some type of Christian, philosophy or background. Most of those women experience sexual rigidity. And so when you keep programming the psyche, the mind with concepts such as this,
Right.
you're going to get a soul tie, so there's this imagery of when I have sex with a man that's not my husband, somehow miraculously some type of demon is going to be formed through that interaction, and that's going to be a part of my life for the rest of my life. When you create that type of imagery inside of a woman's brain, inside of her mind, she grabs onto that belief. And so when she goes into a relationship, even though she consciously wants to be happy, but in the back of her mind, she's got all of the trauma of these belief systems playing on the background. So it's going to make her very rigid. So she's not going to experience, the type of sex that she could if she didn't have this type of programming.
Right.
I don't know how deep y'all want me to start talking, but if I say too much, just say, Vanessa, you're talking too much. So like a lot of Christian women, many of them don't experience orgasm. Many of them are not able to experience sex outside of the traditional positioning within sex, you know what I'm saying? Because of all of these antiquated teachings. So this is also affecting
That's so
relationships. Now you got a man, and men, now I love my brothers, but men don't typically become as religious as women. Even though men identify as Christians, they don't consume it to the degree that women do. So
That's true.
It doesn't hit them the same way. So now you got a Christian woman with a Christian man, and he's not bound with his
Right.
sexuality. But the
But she's
woman
got,
is.
you know,
What was
things like,
that?
I got to do this. And
Yeah,
no.
yeah. So the woman's trying to be holy. She's trying to, she's all of these beliefs are playing. Okay, I know women who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s who've never had sex because they still waiting on Boaz, right? So then you end up with a man who has got this woman who he's not enjoying sexually. So what's he gonna do, y'all? He's gonna cheat on her,
Yeah.
And so those divorces those marriages end up in divorce because of all of this rigid teaching. So I'm not bashing the church. It may sound like I am, but I am asking the church to become more educated and learn how to empower women. And so when you ask the question about what's the name for soul ties in the secular world, secular people don't really talk about soul ties. They talk about things like attachment and attachment theory.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
No, but that's so important. That's why I wanted to, do this. I actually had a different idea, but I was, speaking to, Ava, and we're brainstorming, working together on this, like, okay, what do we want to start with? And this topic had came up, and I'm like, oh yes, that would be great, because I get it, I grew up, in the church, and I mean, I wasn't a wild, person or anything like that, but I am very what's the word? Very vocal, and I will speak up for other people. And so I didn't mind it. I always been taller than everybody else, bigger than everybody else. I'm like, what? Who gonna check me?
Me too.
And so, but I'm just like, well, hey, I'm in the position, I can do it, and I noticed that some people, even, family members or my friends, younger siblings, they would feel, even though they're close, with their family, they would feel comfortable asking me, because they knew if I didn't know, I was kind of a square, but I still didn't have a problem asking. Like, I never felt like, ooh, I don't want to ask that question. This is that, because I'm like, well, if we're supposed to be doing, something or living by these certain rules, please tell me why. And I'm good with it. If you can explain it to me and make it make sense, I'm all aboard. But if you can't, then I'm not going to listen to you, and that's me. And so I'm just like, we definitely need to have these conversations a little bit more, especially when it's pushed, in the church, for you not to have sex before marriage. And there's different, little scare tactics. Let's evolve some
That's
and
right.
educate, properly, because, sad to say, everybody's not getting educated at home. And some people, believe that we should teach these different things at school. And I say, why not? We're talking about sex, but we don't talk about the relationship, piece of it. And so it's just like, it seems kind of like an abusive mindset. If I go from being taught, okay, stay away from boys, don't do this, don't do that. The boys are being taught the same thing. Don't keep your hands to yourself, blase, and then all of a sudden, then when you start having these attractions for them, it's like, okay, but get married, and then if you get married, but it's like, I went from being kind of fearful of you to now I have to submit and take care of you and, spread them when you ask, just be, your love slave. And then for the man, it's just like, yeah, we're married now. You're supposed to do whatever, the marriage bed is undefilable. And it's just like a lot of confusion in there, a lot of, and I think it can kind of make me be a little bit traumatic, for
It's
some.
very traumatic.
You know,
Very traumatic.
and it's not fair.
That's what I do for a living. It's just religious trauma healing for the most part, because the church needs to hear this very difficult statement. This is from a former pastor. So if I can say it, anybody should be able to admit that most of our religious beliefs are causing trauma within the soul, especially of women, but men too. And so it's time to have conversations.
Right, because we're affecting each other, and it's just
That's
like,
right.
you know, then women feel kind of alone, and they get their little women circles and powwows. And like, do you go through this? I go through this and that. But then we talk about it to each other, but nothing's really being fixed because a lot of times the women are scared to talk to their men. They're just like, I just want to have one, or I just need to be married. I'm 30, 31, you know, and so it's just like you're constantly like in this jail, you know, and that's not healthy. And then he can't really, you know, enjoy, you know, the fact of being with you if he's thinking in the back of his mind that you're not fully open to him, and that you kind of feel like he's taking advantage of you in some kind of way, or it's kind of a sexual abuse in some kind of way. It's just like,
Exactly.
sexy, you know. It's not, you know. So but I wanted to go ahead and introduce the doctor real quick. So hold on really quick here. So Dr. Maleo, I didn't want to destroy your name, and I might still be doing that. Maleo Negesti, did I say it right?
Negesti. But you did right on the Maleo, so you're good.
Okay, awesome. But we wanted to go ahead and introduce you. You know, we've been rolling. And then we're going to go into some of the questions, because it seems like I'm looking at the questions coming from one place, from Facebook, and then there's some coming from YouTube as well. So I don't know if we lost Ava or she had to step away for a moment, but yes, so we went over the definition of soul ties and wanted to get your perspective on what is soul ties, from what you know about it. And also, before we do that, go ahead and if you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do. Yeah, such a beautiful smile.
Thank you. Thank you.
Girl, flashing.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Yes,
Thank you
of
so
course.
much for having me. It's a pleasure to be able to talk about the state of relationships from a soul perspective, because the soul is often overlooked. Because of course it's invisible, right? So it's misunderstood, and people really can't understand something or relate to something they can't understand. So thank you for even creating this platform to talk about it.
Oh, for sure.
My name is Maleo Negesti, and I am a spiritual healer. I like to consider myself to be a spiritual gatekeeper. And most of my work over the last 17 years has primarily been with dealing with sensuality and sexuality. So I've done a lot of counseling, a lot of tantric work, a lot of body work on men and women as individuals and also as couples. I'm a hypnotist. I do spiritual consultations and anything you can, spiritual baths, ritual, anything you can think of that helps to remind people of who they are and redirect them inward to get their answers, you know, so they can fulfill their purpose and their destiny, or discover their purpose and destiny. That is primarily why I'm here. But a lot of what I do is sex, sensuality, and relationships. A lot of it.
Awesome. I think that's so important for us. I think there's a lot of issues, and we can, you know, pinpoint them on, you know, point the finger at everyone else. But I know that the root, or what we need the most, is healing. That first, and then we can kind of take some steps forward. It's like you have to deal with you and be more self-aware and do your inner work, so that you can be more accountable, you know, to things, and not so offended or out there projecting. So that's very important, is to do that, you know, self-healing. But beyond that, you know, for our ladies, and I speak to that because I've already spoken to the men about it, but practicing femininity and just getting back in touch, you know, with that, and seeing a femininity coach, you know. It's okay to admit it, you know, if you grew up a certain kind of way and you've had to lend and use your masculinity, you know, more, more so, that you forgot, how to be feminine, because you've just been in this fight or flight mode, for so long. And so I think that that's really important too, because when you're in that, you're where you need to be. And so everything, you don't have to worry about this not working out or this not being right, because you're right where you need to be. And so everything else will fall into place. So, but yeah, thank you so much for that. I will be checking out. I've been checking out your page. I know there's a lot of things that are on there. I'm like, oh, what? When? Interesting, So, so after that, we kind of discussed, the topic of soul ties, and you can give us your perspective on soul ties. And also, the next thing we had got into is how it's affecting, Black women, as it relates to, a spiritual or religious background or upbringing. And how it's affecting you on the day-to-day basis, relationships, and maybe also if there's another term for soul ties, if they use that in the different in different areas, or people with different backgrounds, because all those church girls know is is soul ties to church, and don't you have no sex, you're gonna be attached to this man forever, like, and possessed,
Forever.
like, gotcha,
That's it.
so
Soul
go
tie.
ahead whenever you're ready.
Well, I will say, I will begin by saying that I have had the fortune of being a person who grew up Pentecostal and Catholic,
Oh,
but I
okay.
have been
At all.
disconnected from church and religion since I was 18. So
Oh,
my perspective on it is I'm very removed. So just like I don't know your name, sis. So
oh,
Vanessa.
pardon me, Vanessa. So like Vanessa was talking about the trauma, and a lot of the work that she's doing is like undoing, right? And helping people unlearn and unpack all of these things that religious doctrine and dogma has put on us. And so I've done a lot of that work, because that's what most of us come with, especially brown people.
That's
Like
right.
we are the spirit keepers. So we take our religion very seriously. It is personal. Even if you don't go to church, like, the praying grandma is still over your shoulder telling you, don't do this and don't do that. And,
Woo!
and it's like, it can be debilitating, because so much of who you are is not even introduced to you until you decide, I'm going to disavow my relationship with church and really have a more intimate relationship with God, Jesus, spirit, source, creator, ancestors, or the earth, whatever it is that you now, decide that for me, this is what it means to be spiritual. And then you have your own religion, you create your own religion. And there's no spirituality without sex. And so you it's offensive and even obscene to consider yourself a spiritual being and discount or overlook how you came here. It was through love. It was through the spirit of love that your
right,
parents got together and had sex to bring you here. So for you to be
right.
like, oh my God, I don't want to talk about sex. Sex brought you here. Okay? Think about
That's
that. Just real basic.
good.
Like sex, and then there's you. Okay.
Right,
So
like it's separate. It's very separate. We don't do that. It's just like, but it's a party.
that one time, and then you came, and then that's it. No more sex. And it's absurd. It's absurd. And
It is
it
absurd.
it is. And it's offensive if you think about it, because the level of mind, I don't want to say what I really want to say, but the mind messery that
Mm,
religion has done, and not just Christianity.
mhm.
Okay.
Right, right.
All religions that
All of them.
subjugate women, that take women out of the 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 light, and the placement that we were in originally. They remove sex and they remove women, right? No woman, you don't have to talk about sex. This male God, and he's out here just creating everything with his power. This man, he's omniscient, and he's just doing all this stuff. It's absurd. So let's just cut all that crap out. Bring it back to what's real. What's real is that there has to be a masculine and just look at nature, right? There's a masculine and a feminine to everything. The masculine and feminine, they get together. Okay. Right. They convene, they coalesce. Whether there's love, whether it's because of nature's cycles, whatever it is, you don't have to romanticize it. But a male and a female get together, pair partner in harmony for a period to create life. Okay. Right. Sometimes there's pleasure associated with it. Sometimes it's just necessity for survival. And we've been acting like we're doing it out of survival because we weren't taught that it is, in fact, the way to tap into the Holy of Holies. Sex is the way to tap into the Holy of Holies because individually, your energy, my sexual energy, our creative energy, our life force, our chi, our prana, our ashe, our sakem, you know, depending on what the pantheon is, there's all these different names, words to describe your life force. That is the God in you. That is the divine spark in you. That is the energy that animates you. And that is what is sexy. That is what makes you sexy. That's what enlivens you. That's what keeps you passionate. That's what keeps you juicy. That's what keeps your heart pumping. That's what magnetizes things to you. People, experiences, the kind of life you want to live and the life you don't. Okay? So you got that. And then you got a woman with hers and a man with his. And when they bring the gods in them together, then they create something, a baby, a project, or whatever it is that they materialize. That's what sex does. It's your power. And so if you want magic, it is absolutely magic. Absolutely. And if you want this about people, take them away from sex.
No, we're just saying it's healing too. What is it? Who is it? Is that
absolutely? Who is it? Sex is medicine. Sex is medicine. You got a headache, have sex.
I'm sorry. I'm all over the place.
Medicine.
Did I say right? Sexual healing.
Sexual healing, honey. Marvin knew
where you think he got that concept from?
Exactly.
Yes.
I remember being 6 years old and in love with that song.
Yes.
Singing and dancing that song. Girl.
Okay. You knew you were going to be educating.
And what would happen, as the doctor was saying, what would happen if we could take all of the women in the church and teach them these concepts, though? If they could experience the beauty in sex, the magic in sex, the power in sex, rather than praying for 48 hours for a miracle, they could learn how to use their sexual
energy,
magnetism to manifest what they've been praying for 10 years.
Yes.
Right. What's interesting is a girlfriend of mine, I actually met her through her husband. He used to work at the gym I went to, and he was like a big brother to me. So I tell him about all my relationship woes. I'm like, yeah, I was dating this guy, it didn't work out, or this is what happened. Could you believe this? Blah, blah, blah. So we bonded, we became good friends. And, one day his girlfriend came in and they eventually got married. And so I used to, and they met, through church, through a Bible study or something like that. And so I started doing Bible studies with them because they would have Bible studies at their home sometimes. And they were just great. And this is the first time I heard it. But, his wife said, she's like, you can pray, before sex. And she was like, it's bomb, girl. She was like, it's pretty things. Like, she was like, it's like, you can pray for things that, you desire, for your family, your relationship, all these things. And she was just like, before you have it. And she's like, and these things happen. She's like, it is incredible. And that was the first time I ever heard anything about praying before sex.
Yes.
Praying before what? And that's how, I guess, convoluted it's become, because you're not really understanding. And when you don't understand it, that seems foreign. You're just like, wait, hold on. God and sex are not going together. That makes me feel uncomfortable. That's like me, in a prayer room at church praying about sex. And I'm just like, I don't understand, and so, but it was, awakening, for me, because that just let me know that there was so much that I didn't know, about it. And I was in this bound, in my mind, and in my body, and so it was more so everything was kind of fear based, so I couldn't really ever enjoy it. And yes, that's before or after marriage. You still don't want to have that on you, and you get into marriage and then you're like, okay, because they say you play how you practice, and so if you are completely uneducated on it, and then you get a partner that's kind of expecting you to know, better, and be open, and he doesn't really know how to help you because they think different and it's, ways for them, then it's like, what do we do now? Where I get the help, I can't go to church and find it. You might get lucky and find someone who is open and real, about it. But what if you don't, So it's really amazing that we can have these discussions and through, all the things that you guys have learned, your education, your research, your life experiences, that you can pour that, into us and into women. And like I think you guys are both saying it, like, could you imagine if you can get all these women together and they really learn, power and their energy? I'm all about that. And I think some don't want that to happen because they're afraid. I don't know. I guess they'll be calling us witches, if we're really in our femininity. Everybody said they're like woman and woman.
Yeah, you'll be called a witch. But it's what the doctor said. And if you go back and research the real beginning and not the beginning that religion gave us, then you will see that the woman was in a completely different posture than religion has placed her in today. So religion, unfortunately, religion is about hierarchy and it's about misogyny, right? So the woman has lost her power through these belief systems. And all I ask women to do is don't listen to me. Go and just Google it. It's not hidden information.
Right.
There used to be a time when they used to call this information secret, right, doctor? Like this information wasn't readily available to people. Right. We have the internet today. There's no reason for a woman to remain in this type of bondage. So when a woman goes and researches and sees in other cultures how powerful she was before these hierarchical religions took her power and stripped that, even the word witch, the church gave a negative connotation to it. If you research the real meaning of a witch, you would see that it has nothing to do with being a evil sorcerer. Most of these women were powerful healers who were very connected to the source, who were very connected to nature, who knew how to create medicines through nature that would heal. They knew how to use the power of the mind to heal. And these men were very intimidated by the power of the woman. So they put that label witch on her and turned it into something negative. I just wish women would research who we really are as opposed to who we've been made to be.
Yeah. No, lately that's what I'm like, I want to tap into my power. I told my mom that.
Yeah. I love when people call me a witch now. I'm like, it's the highest compliment. Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's so funny because
you see my power.
Right. No, I realized that, like, the more that I, got, more educated on that, and then women and our femininity and our actual power, what we're going to do. I mean, we're the mothers of the earth, like, why would we be powerless? Like, why would we be scared and, beat down and, wore out and confused and, all these different things? It doesn't make sense. We got a huge responsibility, and so, and I think what a lot of times, people don't know, obviously, scare them. And so for some of the men, there's some men who embrace that. They love it because they understand that when a woman is fully in her femininity and in her power, she gonna take care of you. Like, she's going to take care of you. Like, that's, we know what to do. We know what we're supposed to do. But what you're getting is a lot of, women who are out here hurt and broken and all these things, and they don't know who they are. And so they still have the power, but they don't have the education behind it, the awareness. And so what happens when you give someone who is aware or mentally disabled, a lot of power or strength, they might misuse it, or might accidentally do right, but
On
most
purpose.
likely, you know, most likely, there's going to be a little damage, happening. And so it's like, this is what you're getting, because we're not resting in our masculine and feminine. So
That's right.
definitely speak to that. What's going on here? Oh, what someone said, okay, well, with Adam and Eve, he said for them to be fruitful and multiply. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. What were the instructions though? How do you do that?
How do
Teach
you
it, sir.
right?
How do you do that?
Teach it. How do you do that?
Exactly. It's not enough to say do
And
that.
being
Okay.
fruitful and multiply doesn't just mean having babies either,
Absolutely
y'all.
not.
Because
Oh,
that's what the
absolutely
church
not.
taught us.
Right.
Be fruitful and multiply does not mean just having babies.
No, it does not.
And so orgasmic sex doesn't just produce babies. Orgasmic sex can produce whatever it is you want to
Whatever you want.
produce, whatever it is you want to manifest.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. But the more, educated that I get, the more things that I learn, my mind is like, I'm like, okay, I was thinking this, but I thought I was a weirdo. But then I come to find out there's a whole lot of people who actually know this. They're not just thinking it, but they know this.
No
And
way.
okay, let me get on board,
Yes.
because I don't want to be in the dark, and no one should want to be there, so thank you. Shout out to my nails. Holla.
Yeah, they do look good. Give it up.
Okay, so let's see. When you're talking what is sexy, are you talking about women's point of views or a man's point of view? Well,
Sexy is your own point of view. Sexy is your energy, it's your aura, it's your field. And so if you look at, and this is general, if you look at, and this, when I say sexy being a field, this applies to dogs and cats. You just study, just pay attention, observe. Any living being, I mean, clearly it will be a little more challenging to observe in a ladybug, right? But in a cat, a dog, man, a woman, human, if you observe anything operating in sovereignty, in autonomy, and in its power, you will see that it is connected to the life force, it is connected to the divine, and you will feel what we call sexy, what we call magnetism, what we call this inexplicable draw. When we call, I like to say, the juice, the person has a juice, or the sauce. They just have it. It's because they are turned on. And it's not about lust. It's not even about desire. They're turned on because their light is on. Their
right.
light is on. You know what I mean? They know what it is that is fueling them, and they're plugged into that. And they're doing their work. They're meditating, they're praying, they're having their conversations with spirit. They're taking care of their body because they know their body is a temple. Their body is the church. So they take care of their body, they take care of their well-being. They are mindful of the people they have in their circles, the things that they ingest, not just food, but TV and the words that they speak. These people are alive, and these are people who know that if they want it, they can have it. They know that they're creating their own reality with their positive energy. They know that they're accountable for the things that are in their circle, in their life today. So that's sexy.
That's
Power,
sexy.
power is
Nope.
sexy. When you wear all black or all white, you know what I'm saying? Because we have these connotations that when you in all black is sexy because of mystery. White is sexy as well because it reveals all things, and so freedom is sexy, connectiveness is sexy,
Yeah.
openness, responsiveness is sexy. So to answer
Mhm.
that person's question, it's not about gender, it's not about anybody's eyes, it's about you being tapped in, you being plugged in to what gives you life. Is sexy, it's confident, it's godfident. It's like I'm out here, I've been delivered. what I'm saying?
That's
And every
true.
day I'm delivered. Every day I'm delivered. Every day I'm
That's
delivered.
Yeah.
so
Every day I'm activated. And
no,
women,
it's
ooh,
interesting because you are able to you're able to feel it, and sometimes we're looking for stuff that you can see, but it's
you
not
can
about
feel
that.
it.
When I think about, certain things, there's all these gender wars and all that. And they were having a conversation about, masculine alpha man versus a man who they're calling, I won't even say the word, but a man who's not, in his masculinity, right? And there was a man who came on, he was speaking. When I tell you, he came in, he was an older man, he probably could have been my daddy, but the way that he just commanded the room and
Mm,
was just in
mm,
basketball. And he was just taking, the way he talked about taking care of business. And he was just like, listen, I'm no nonsense. And he's talking about, I'm going to make sure that my family is taken care of. If I don't got any kids, my woman is taken care of. Why would I not, do that? Because of course, these days you're hearing all these things that these guys are looking like suckers who are literally just taking care of responsibilities. And it's just like, that's a being a man, like, I mean, as far as what we know it, of course, as a woman, we can't
mhm,
say, okay, this defines what a man is, but we know what we're experiencing, and we know what we've seen and what is registered to us, about a man being in his masculinity, what feeds us, right? We can recognize that. And
mhm.
so, yeah, when he started speaking, just his whole energy, I was like, I don't know how much money you make. I don't know what car you're driving. I don't know where you live. I don't know this, but I could feel the energy. The
Mhm.
mask and the sympathy
Yeah.
was just like,
Mhm.
okay.
Like, I'll let you
So
tell me what to do a few times. You know what I'm saying? I'll follow your lead a little bit.
naturally, they naturally fall into it. You're like, that's right. That's who I am.
Yes.
That's who I
Yes.
am. It's a feminine queen. So, yeah, I think a lot of times we don't understand those things. We should talk more, have those conversations so you can understand, your partner, because you're with them and you're attached to them for however long it is that you choose, that you're going to do that. So why not understand each other and educate yourself on each other, to forever process. But so what was the last one? So we wanted to talk about, I don't know if Ava's coming back, ma'am, but maybe she's listening. So I want to kind of touch on, I don't think we have any other questions this week. If you have a question and it didn't get answered, I wasn't really looking in the beginning. A lot of stuff just kind of popped up of people talking to each other. Feel free to throw the question in there now, and then I will set for it. But I wanted to um, ask about, we were talking about earlier, you mentioned it, Vanessa, but it's for now. Um, how do we break those soul ties, or can we? So for those, you were saying because all of them are not bad. All of them you may need, some of those soul ties, and it's going to last a lifetime. And it's a positive thing. But for those maybe that are negatively affecting, folks, men and women,
Hmm.
actually, let's touch on that really quick. Can men have soul ties?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Just,
Because a soul is genderless.
Mhm.
okay.
So
Right.
we identify souls as a way to understand each other on the earth, but in the realm of the spirit, there is no gender. So yeah, a man can have a soul tie, absolutely. And in terms of how do you break it if it's negative, so this is something that for me is totally different than what I taught in the church and what was taught to me, because the church unfortunately perpetuates the idea that we are powerless unless somebody else is doing the work for us.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
I remember all of these ritualistic things you mentioned before, at the church you went to, where he told you to write the name on a piece of paper. And,
Mhm.
I'm not saying that's bad, but I love the doctor. And I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce her name correctly, Malayo, but she talked about sovereignty, which is a word that I would have never used 7 years ago. Because in religion, in the church, we're not taught to use that word as it pertains to ourselves. We're taught that only Jesus is sovereign.
Oh, wow.
So the difference for me now as I try to empower women is if you do need to break a quote unquote soul tie, which you know how I feel about that. It's probably more like a soul contract and not a soul tie. But anyway, for those people who believe that it's a soul tie, because whatever you believe is what you create. So if you believe it's a soul tie, operate in your sovereignty. And for me, it's really not about a ritual, but it's about, and this is a little woo-woo, y'all. I believe that souls, that we can communicate to each other. Souls, we're not bound in the soulish realm. All right. So every woman could communicate to the soul of that man. Doctor, pray for me because I'm gonna get in trouble. Telepathically, right?
Hey.
You could have, that woman can have a soul. She can have a soul conversation with that man's soul and never even have to speak to him.
Absolutely.
And you simply do that if you learn how to meditate or pray, whatever method you use to connect to source, to God, whoever you connect to, Jesus, whoever it is, it's really all the same, y'all. It's just divine energy is all it is. But anyway, a woman can simply go in prayer or go in meditation, and she can communicate with the soul of that individual and let that soul know in love, because in religion, it's always evil. It's always, we're taught to speak evil of that individual, cast it out of you and all that foolishness. No, that's an individual. That's a soul, just like your soul. And the relationship is just ended, right? So you just simply say to that soul, I no longer desire to be in a relationship with you. I no longer desire to be soul connected to you. You know, I appreciate our time together. I'm grateful for our time together. I've learned some major life lessons and soul lessons when we were connected, but I no longer have a desire to be connected to you anymore. And I'm ready to end that connection. This is not a conversation you have to have with the person physically. Women have to learn how to have these conversations telepathically in the spirit realm, because the soul can hear it.
Yes,
and y'all, that's what we do it anyway when we pray. That's what prayer is. So if it makes you feel more comfortable to say pray, then pray. But you have that conversation from soul to soul, and that's how you break it. And for me, that's it. It's a woman using her own power, her own sovereignty, her own divinity, and getting in control of her own life, and stop yielding power to somebody else. And I say it can be gone just like that. I mean, it's like magic. It's gone. I've slept with a lot of men, and and it is what it is. It is what it is. Okay. Hello, somebody. But none of those men have power over my life today. None of those men are in my thought processes. None of those men are anywhere in my aura, because I have the power to heal myself. And these are things that I want desperately for church women to know today, that many of them just don't know.
No,
but
you're right.
Doctor, I'm anxious to hear what the doctor's going to add to that.
I'm hugging you. I am hugging you so.
I'm hugging you right back. I love you. I love you. I love you. I feel so connected to her.
Woo! Thank you for delivering that word. Okay, amen and glory be to Goddess on that. So, I wanted to just like cry, just receiving that, because it's so profound and it is so real. What she's saying, every word of it is so real. It's the power that we have. It is our words. It's our words. And in ancient time, right? The when they say the tongue is mightier than the sword, the tongue, the words, be your utterances, whether they be verbal or nonverbal, have so much power and so much magnitude. And a lot of we relate with our partners, our loves on so many levels. When you really are where you pay attention, you're like, oh, I was just about to call you, or I was just thinking about you, and you called me first, or you thought about me first, or you ask a question about this person, and all of a sudden they're calling you talking about that thing, and you're like, how did that happen? It's not coincidence. It's a testament to telepathy. It's a testament to our psychic abilities, which all humans have, our awareness. And right now on the planet, everything is heightened. Even so, let's say you all doubted that you could talk to your ex, or I don't like ex, I say former, your former love, or someone who you feel like you can't get away from them, and why in my life, and you make that agreement to say, I'm not doing more, or I don't understand this, or whatever it is, I need to take a step back. And you also can, in your prayer, it's really good to do this in the shower, because water is a great amplifier and so I'm into ritual in that way, right? So while you're washing the dishes, you get very clear. While you're showering, while you're washing your face, when you're in the mirror, when you're laying down, like right before you go to sleep, you take some deep breaths, you get an image, visualize the person, go into the feeling place of where the two of you felt connected, and it felt really good, because high vibing things make your magic intensified. And you say, Jerome, I'm not gonna be able to do this with you anymore, baby.
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you for the blessing.
Thank you for the blessing.
Right.
Thank you for the testing. But right now, I like to say, I'm pulling my pieces back. I'm calling the parts of me. I'm retrieving me. The parts of me that are over there with you, they got my head stirring and I can't sleep, and I don't want to look at anybody else, or whatever it is. I'm calling back my pieces. I'm calling back my heart. I'm calling back my mind, and it's yours. Call it back. Hey, Jerome, you can't have this anymore. I love you, and I will love you from here, but you can't be in my field anymore. And I release you. Thank you for time well spent.
Thank you.
Yes, send them away in gratitude, and
that's right.
Yourself back, even if you don't like the idea of sending them away, because of course that seems, again, like it's punishment, right, or punitive. Pull yourself back. There's power in that. Calling yourself back by your name.
Yes.
By your name. You call your own name. Okay.
I love it.
Hello. There's power in the name. Call your name, your whole name first, and you say, hey girl, it's time for you to come back. You're whole. It's time for you to be whole. You need all of your focus, your love, your energy, your attention, whatever it is you need it here. Love you, soul. Thank you. And if you can also, there are times when, like, sometimes the work is not done, right? So the soul agreements, soul contracts, soul ties where the two of you aren't in alignment right now because of whatever's going on in life. But you're still there. You're still anchored, but it's unfinished. Not because it's necessarily emotional, but just intuitively, that there's something more for the two of you to do. You can call yourself back now and say, the time is right, and we are both in alignment, and we're ready to work together. We can reconvene, but right now it's not that time. And it's really about being honest with yourself, and saying, you know what, I'm empowered. I'm in control, and I love myself enough to say, I'm not doing that with you anymore. And especially the toxic ones, And I think that whole toxic thing is like, it's necessary. The language is necessary, but it's divisive. And I say necessary because it brings our attention to the wanted versus the unwanted, the healthy versus the unhealthy, because we have been entrenched in all things unhealthy. So being able to cite your own toxicity, and then how that manifests more toxicity is important. But when you're healing, you don't want to focus on toxic. It gets on my nerves, this whole toxic thing. It's really like who's well and who's not. Who's well and who's not. Who's in their power and who's not.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Right.
But not to cut off, but I wanted to say that the reason that it may be divisive like that is just what we were talking about, without this education, without women knowing this, or without men knowing this, you're coming from a space where it's kind of victim-like, and and something that Vanessa had said a little bit earlier, too, which is a complaint, a lot of time in relationships about, women not being accountable. But I hate to say it, but it almost seems that we're set up that way, as we were talking about, church, not to be, in a sense, because the lack of that, education. And I think that that's important, because once you have that, then you can come from an empowered place instead of a fearful one, in a place where
Mhm.
you're looking for the answers from someone else, or for them to validate whoever, who you are, not just what you're saying, but who you are. And so it's very important to get back to that, to self, and be able to tap in so that you can come from an empowered, position, and just bring the balance back. And that, both of you ladies, was just, it's a whole blessing, okay? Because y'all both said a whole word, and then that calling myself back. Girl, I'm about to watch this back, I'm about to
Woo,
watch,
child.
yeah, getting you prepared.
Hello. It's time to
I'm
baby.
about to call myself back right now.
Hey girl, playtime over.
Yo, Vanessa, come on back, girl.
All that, it is time, and also being able to come from a place where you're not angry,
That's
you're,
it.
you get what I'm saying? What you
Yeah.
were saying about how peaceful, that was, and the way that you were saying it was just like, I'm coming from a place and I can see the collateral beauty. Like, I can see the silver lining, and do what I need to do, be accountable, and not be mad, not be angry. There's no negative energy going out. It's all positive. I
Mhm.
appreciate, your time with me.
Mhm.
Whether I would have thought it was bad or good,
Mhm.
I learned something. I grew, and so it's a blessing, and I can see that, beauty in it. And I can send you on your way, or I can,
Mhm.
take me back, and we can go from there. I
Woo,
love it. Love
powerful.
it. It's so beautiful. Okay,
I do
let's
want to
see.
add something. I want to add something because, um, like time as we know it doesn't really exist, right? And so,
Mm,
um, women can be either extremely patient or very impatient. And I speak from personal experience with this kind of stuff. And so
mhm.
we have to allow time as this like very linear, because it's 12 to 12, and then 12 to 12. But
Right.
in between those moments, there
Mm,
are all of these things that are happening. And I feel like we should really be able to allow for the process to occur. Sometimes we want instant
Mhm.
results, sometimes we expect that if we were feeling this way, that we should not feel that way, because we've decided we don't want that person in our lives anymore. And we don't honor the whole experience, and the feelings are a part of it. We don't, it's
yeah.
just, you know, I grew, or I learned. I tapped into the feeling, and the feeling let me know that this was real. The feeling let me know that I was real. The feeling was communicating a message. What did I feel? How
Mm,
did it register in my body? How did it register in my heart? How can I use it next time to identify more of the same when I want it? Because if we don't acknowledge the feelings, then we don't really learn how to communicate with our feelings and what they're trying to say to us. If we keep trying to either shove them down our own
mhm.
throats, like, no, don't cry, or don't be happy about that, don't get too excited, you know what I mean, because it's gonna fall apart, or all of these things we do with our feelings, instead of honoring them. So honor your feelings, give yourself time. If you are ending a soul contract, know that
Mhm.
soulmate, I'm into soulmates. More soul tie. It's funny that this is what we're talking about, but soul tie is not something I even pay attention to. And I'm about
Right.
soulmates heavy. But I don't
That's
look
so
at
true.
soul ties because I don't want anything binding me. I don't use language that goes against the truth of who I am. I'm free. I'm not no
I
soul tie.
love
Right.
No soul
that's
ties
true.
over here. I have
Right.
connections, and if you unplug a connection, then it, right? It's not gonna
That's
be.
right.
I have connections. I have interests. I have mates, but I don't have any
Mhm.
ties.
Now that's good. That's good. Well, a lot of there's so much good feedback, in the audience, and they're saying, Miss Jeannie, she's saying that these ladies are awesome, good information,
Yeah.
and Emerald, yes, I want a weekly show on similar discussions with these three ladies. Oh,
Oh, we got
That's
some
sweet.
sisters.
That's sweet.
that's what I'm saying.
That's
Like
beautiful.
so passionate about this because I know it's needed, and so when you meet, other, women who feel the same or, have the experience and kind of, perform to this and are passionate about, you know, uh, correcting, or helping us all who need the help and just don't know where to look. It's a beautiful thing. And Miss Jeannie again, she's like, yes, I agree. This is better than Housewives. To hold we need to behold again or be whole again, a time of being empowered. Yes, thank you so much. Right. We need to amplify our voice that would actually help the community. And that is so true. That's what we're saying, here. Oh my gosh, I appreciate it so much. I appreciate you ladies. This has been a treat. I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to share your social media platforms or just ways to get in contact with you. And of course, we can get that information from you later as well to put it on underneath the information for the playback on YouTube, just so everyone knows. But yes, if you guys can share that and any services that you may have, just so they know how to get in contact with you, and then we'll go ahead and close it on out. So Vanessa, if you could go first.
Sure. So you can reach me at www.vanessarbrooks.com. But I spend more time on Facebook. So over there, it's Vanessa the Sage Oracle. As I stated before, I have a life coaching certification school that I offer for spiritual entrepreneurs who are looking to turn their spiritual gifts into a business. But I also provide professional counseling and holistic healing services as well. So anything from honey preaching to tarot reading, I got you covered.
Yes, yes, yes. I
Okay. Oh, and the doctor. I
yes.
keep wanting to say
The doctor, I'm waiting for her information right now.
Vanessa, I'm gonna give you my
that.
phone number, baby.
Right.
We may not
So
host we may not host the show weekly, but I might be contacting you weekly.
listen, hey, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. So you all can find me on Instagram or Facebook, but I spend most of my time on Instagram, and I am what would Maleo say on Instagram, and I have a wonderful self-love program called I'm in Love with Me, which is a 30-day journey for men or women who are looking to tap into themselves deeper. And also, I am a traveling healer. So I travel wherever you are to work with you, to work on you, to do one-on-one sessions. And that's really what I'm doing now. Nowadays, I'm doing a lot of traveling, working one-on-one. I do yoni massages, and some really intensive work to reawaken the feminine because it's time. So
That's beautiful.
that's what I do. And if you want to reach me, got some tarot in there too. You can throw the tarot in there too, Michelle.
I think I love it. You know, you got that nude picture on the beach on the rock, and I was like, oh, I love it. It's something about just being able to embrace your femininity, whatever size you are. You know, whatever you could just
Yes.
fully embrace the beauty of you and accepting who you are, because it's always great, to make changes, that are promoting a healthier life. But I think the first step to that is, truly accepting you and
Absolutely.
seeing yourself as beautiful and fully just accepting you and
Naked.
loving you for
Yes.
real.
Yes. Being naked. Thanks for mentioning that because I forgot about that too. So, a part of the traveling is I host a seasonal retreat. So the next one will
Oh,
be in the fall. And I am a purveyor of psilocybin. So psilocybin is the next wave of healing in plant medicine. It's old, it's ancient, but it is now resurfacing, reemerging as people are reawakening and really wanting to do a lot of healing, especially to their nervous system and dealing with anxiety, depression, and PTSD. So I facilitate groups with men and women, but I have a retreat that I do every season that's very much around psilocybin. And so the last one was in Puerto Rico, which is where you saw that new picture on the rock. And the next one will
okay.
be in the fall in New England. So,
Oh,
if you go to
wow.
my Instagram, you and follow me, then you'll have a heads up. It's a very tight, intimate circle of sisters that have been traveling 2 seasons. And so we have 2 more seasons to go. And we're open to or 2 or 3 like-minded energies, but it's very
Okay.
beautiful, very beautiful. So if you want to get naked and always, because it's not just about the body, it's revealing yourself to yourself kind of thing. So we're here for that.
That's beautiful. I totally. I went to a spa, and I've been to plenty of spas, but it was this like a spa resort type thing. And on the women's side, it was just these women just naked. All these women just naked, and they were so comfortable, all different sizes, hairy, waxed, shaved. And I'm just like, okay, this is what works. I was kind of like, I don't know how I feel about this. But then I was just like, this is really beautiful, because we should be free that way. We should, not be shamed. We should love every piece and part of us, the whole thing. And
Right.
that's a problem that we deal with today, is just only loving this side of us that presents well, or the
Right.
representative that we've been trained,
Right.
to show. So we're like, we love that side, but then the real version of us, both sides of us, we struggle with. So I love that. Love that. Be fully naked and always.
Yeah.
So, and Vanessa, girl, I love you. I love you both.
Love
I'm
you
like,
too.
I'm so glad that we got connected by Ava, because you guys are everything. So I'm like, I will be thanking you. So,
Thank
well,
you.
thank you so much again. I don't know if you guys had any last words, but if not, I was going to go ahead and close this out. Was there anything else?
I
I
am
want to hear.
good. Thank you. I'm good. I did forget to mention though, you were asking about our services. I did just start something really powerful for women. It's called Sacred Sister Circle. It's a Facebook group. I would love for you guys to join me over there. I'm really
Okay.
about helping the woman heal. And so if you're interested in joining our sisterhood over on Facebook, I am on Instagram at Vanessa the Sage Oracle, but I don't spend a lot of time over there. But I just want to say thank you, V, for the opportunity. It was so awesome. Thank you for letting me be me, former church girl, former Jesus girl. Thank you for letting me be all cool and stuff. And it was just such a pleasure meeting you, Doctor. My goodness,
We're in sync for
I
sure.
I feel something. I just feel an energetic charge coming through. So
Yes!
thank you both for the opportunity tonight. It was awesome.
Thank you too. Thank you so much. I
Yes,
almost didn't make it. I'm so glad I'm here.
so it's great. Yes. Well, thank you guys so much. And we'll definitely be in contact. Thank you, everyone, for watching tonight and hanging out with us and asking your questions. And I'm so glad it looks like you guys enjoyed it. So that is, it makes me feel very good. And just like you had said, Vanessa, about just being able to be yourself, and that's me. On some platforms, it's Raw Talks with V, because I believe that that's where the growth, really comes from. So thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And
Thanks, B.
until next time,
All right.
join us next time for Ask a Black Woman. Have a great night.
Peace.